Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Normally I open for public comments, but I wanted to shake up the agenda just a little bit. I wasn't thinking on Friday or Saturday when I pulled the agenda together that I'd like to get the outdoor assembly permit 10K dealt with first, just because we do have Brendan Dagan from Elite Feats online, and Chief Reed, and Lewis Highway Superintendent. So we have all the interested parties on now. So I want to work on that first. So we have received an outdoor assembly permit from the Shell-Plan 10K. And Brendan, I'll let you just talk through what's the same, what's different briefly. And I also want to just go over a couple of the visuals that we have. So,
of course, we'll appreciate the opportunity to present here again. And thank you, Amber, for readjusting and putting in first thing. Good news. We're back again this year, 46th annual. So past the Sapphire, looking forward to a half a century. But the actual format of the event is going to remain the same. The foot presence, as same as last year, the run a show, our team will be on site before noon, but the actual flow of road closure and the egress, all that will remain the same. Breakdown before the sun sets, post-race festivities over at the American Legion, pre-event packet pickup on the lawn at the school, nothing inside the school, parking behind the school, fun run kicking off at 4:15, 5K, 10K kicking off at 5:30, and 5K kicking off at 5:50. And we anticipate that last participant will be on the bus and headed back to the ferry or driving away before the sun sets. That's our goal. And just looking forward to another really great event.
The dates, the setup will be June 20th. The event itself is June 21st. Christina, could you pull up, there was a visual on the route.
I've got that right here. If you get it, cool.
So this is something that we will post on the website when we get closer to the race date. But I think what's helpful about this is it shows exactly where the runners go. There's the red 10K route and then the shorter 5K route. And off on the different sections, what time the roads will clear by. So generally, and Chief Reed, I think I saw you on the list of attendees.
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, yeah, just what time do we have? I see we have what time the roads clear at, just we start to shut down the roads at what times?
Yeah, so we try to leave the roads open as long as possible and just turn down like police radio. And about 5 minutes before the start at 5:30, we do a rolling close. So, and that rolling close, starts on that red route that Brendan has displayed there. But about, the elite runners run 5-minute miles, so it's really easy to kind of time out. They're at that 3-mile mark in 15 minutes, which is the entry to Gardeners Bay Country Club. So within 15 minutes, we're closed on that red route, and they're up to 114 at about 20 to 23 minutes at Winthrop and 114. And that's when we have our longest extended closure. So what Brendan has displayed here is our reopening times, because a lot of the community and we get calls and the running group gets called, and I'm sure Town Hall, and we're having a wedding at Gardeners Bay Country Club or at the Deering Harbor Inn or on Ram Island. How can we get through? So I'd really like to point the public. We're going to post this up on our town website. It should be on the 10K website. So people can get a feel for what times the roads will clear. But generally at that 5:30 time frame to 6 o'clock, is when we really end up shutting down a good portion of the island. But keep in mind, we try to open it up as quick as we can, and we create a bypass that people can use, and we try to get 114 open. So there is some very light inconvenience to the community for a nice cause, and we try to roll with people and get it back open as quick as we can.
Thank you. I think that's like the biggest question that gets asked from people, so by people up in town, so wanted to cover that. There's also, Christina, you have the event map. And so the staging takes place in front of the school. And then the finish of the race is Fisk Field. And then the after race events are over at the community center / Legion Hall. And there's parking in the school parking lot as well as off of Duval Road behind the school.
And I think the buses who are transporting people, drop them off by the tennis court. Buses come through there.
Square?
Yeah, the purple one.
Yeah, purple. Looks like black.
Any questions the town board has?
Where's the food trucks are going in the roadway in front of the Legion?
Yes, in that curved drive. Yeah, in the parking area of the Legion.
And
The
Supervisor,
roadway or the parking?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
They're in kind of like the parking lot. They're not in the road. They're not on.
Well, I mean, the roadway, it looks like they're, okay, whatever, that's fine.
It's, yeah, the curved
Yeah, they're in
drive
like the curve.
Yeah,
right in front of the Legion doors.
right, okay.
So Albert, one thing that you might see there is in that blue box right in the middle and the gold boxes, we stage the runners off of 114 now. We staged them pre-event on School Street, and they're kind of highlighting that in those two boxes too. So we're trying to keep them off the main thoroughfare as much as we can until it starts. The other comment that I had for you, Supervisor, is that we had a meeting of our emergency management group. It's fire department, EMS, both volunteer organizations who do a great job for this event. The school, the town, and the highway department, and obviously the police department, who are heavily involved in this. And we took a look at it from all our individual perspectives and as a community perspective, so that we could make recommendation to move forward with the plan as is. As Brendan said, it's the 46th year. Everybody's back that has worked in those respective organizations in the past. So we have real good muscle memory on this. And I think our community has great muscle memory too. I'm not saying or suggesting that there's never an inconvenience. There always are, but we try to have plans and backup plans to remedy those as they come up.
And Supervisor, I assume that one of the conditions of the permit will be insurance, naming the town.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have that in the packet already.
All right, thank you.
Any questions from the public? All right. Thank you, Brendan.
Stella.
Oh, Stella, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Thanks so much. Brendan, can you just, with respect to any pickups, vehicles at the North Ferry parking lot, are there plans for that?
So we're going to be running, I need confirmation from the race committee, but I'm 99% sure we're going to be running shuttle buses from both ferries, same as last year, so that people can park, board the ferry and then get shuttled to the, and those shuttles will go to the tennis courts for pickup and drop off. Is that answering your question, Stella?
Yeah, so once you just have confirmation, if you could just give me a call directly or call Bridge Hunt, that would be helpful. Because, Greenport doesn't have as much parking this year as it has in the past because they're doing some work there. So it might inspire people to take cars over. I don't know what's going to happen. So I just wanted to park that idea in your head as well.
So I can confirm, I just pulled it up. We are running, shuttle service will be running between both ferries and the race site from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay,
So,
and pickup and drop off will be by the tennis courts?
correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Supervisor, just while we have Stella, because she highlighted us, probably community concern as well as planning concern. Stella, do you have a sense of when that north side, Greenport side parking lot will be back open? I don't want to hold you to an exact time, but it would be helpful for us to know.
I don't know, but I can tell you they were striping it this morning. So that's a step in the right direction. We've been told it will be ready by Memorial Day. I'll see if there's any change to that plan, and if there is, I'll come back to both you and the supervisor.
That'd be great. So this event is June 21st, so most likely everything should.
Most likely, yeah.
Right, great.
Thank you, Stella.
Sure.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, team. Thank you.
See you on the 21st. Now we will go back to the regular order of the agenda. Public comments, and I know, Bert Waite, you had signed up to speak. Yes.
Hi, Bert Waite, 9 North Ferry Road. If you're a regular reader of the reporter, you noticed that 2 weeks ago there was a front page, Amber and Ken, you were unveiling the basket stations. And then there was a correction in the paper this past week stating that the company that installed them is not a not-for-profit company. It's a for-profit group. And I don't know if you were misled when they came to you, told you, or they presented their idea to install these baskets on the island. But I'm making the statement that it's a business use of town property and therefore should be regulated as such, and we should go through whatever review process maybe you have for that as a business. And now you might like the product of cleaning up the beaches, but the structure of that company is that they are for-profit and they are selling advertising on the sign. So you can, the town has a fee structure for businesses on the beach where you charge $250 for a 10 by 10 section of beach for the season. That's 100 square feet. This guy is charging for 56 square inches, $500 a year. So I don't think those baskets. What was said in the paper where the reporter made a comment that the owner of the company said that, well, we're not a nonprofit because then we would have to go out and fundraise, and we didn't want to do that. Something like to that extent, And well, you could make all kinds of statements about why you do or don't want to be a nonprofit. Just because you become a nonprofit doesn't mean that you can't self-support it yourself. They could do it that way, but it would have, I think it would, if it was a nonprofit, it would have some other, it would have a board, it would have controls that the public could see, the transparency of what's really going on. And the question is, if this is private property on town land or town land, is that protected speech, right? So now they have something to say, is that the town, can the town dictate to them what they're going to say on that sign? So, and what raised my cackles on this is when I spoke to the gentleman whose company is doing this, he said that, oh, he was approached by a national brand to take over all the stations and advertise on all of them. So that's, maybe good business for him. And he could either sell these things that are private property, they could pass out of his control to a national brand, or he could just sell them to a company that the town doesn't particularly care for that product. And I don't know what the restrictions are on selling, advertising cigarettes or alcohol or political speech, but the town doesn't have control over that. So in addition to the fact that it's another sign on the island, it was in my face when I went down to Menhaden Lane. I didn't really appreciate, having something else obstructing my, my entry into the beach. But that's okay. I mean, not everybody, I get that. Maybe the choice, the place could have been different. You could put it off to the side, so it's not really right in front of you right there. But, so I think there was a lot of decisions being made that didn't really consider all viewpoints of the community. And also, I don't think respected the town code. So I don't know if it was, you were misled or you approved it with the fact that it was a business. But I was just curious, if there's going to be, if you could take the action, which I think should be taken, is that they should be removed until they can comply with town code.
We will look at that further.
I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that. The fact that were you misled on that then, or anybody?
They didn't come and present to us.
I don't remember.
Yeah, Ken present.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ken did.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the company did. I think Ken just brought it.
I don't remember it being presented as a private company that was
No.
gonna sell advertising space.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's how it is.
Okay, so,
We
It's
saw,
presented as a private company?
Yes.
but selling advertising space? No.
They would- I said that it's like sponsor a highway. I think if Steven Leventhal's on, maybe he could, because I checked with him on the legality of this as well. Maybe he could chime into it, because it's similar to a public-private partnership and similar to what you would have for sponsor a highway. If someone wanted to sponsor, if nobody sponsors it, it stays there just as it is.
Not quite the same animal, because the QR codes that are on these things lead to their merch page.
They lead right to their website, actually, yes.
Yeah, so,
Right, but the merchandise that's sold, portion of the proceeds go to funding these as well as funding the oyster replantation project that they do in Moriches Bay. So, I don't know, maybe Steven can lend it.
how much of it is kept as their private profit?
That I don't know. I just know that I also looked it up that, the town of Southold approved this similarly with their board, town of East Hampton, Southampton, West Hampton, I mean, there's quite a few of them on Long Island, so I don't get the impression that anybody was steered in a direction that was nefarious at all, but I mean, if it's up to the board, and if Steven can weigh in from a legal standpoint on it, then I'll leave it to him.
Sure. Would you like me to do that?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay. I don't think the fact that a business is using the beach makes it a business use. I think in this case, a service is being provided to the town, and an incidental benefit to someone from the use of town property is not illegal or problematic. As I understood it, and as I understand it still, it's not a solicitation that will appear on these signs. Rather, it is identifying who is responsible for it and who has provided the funding for it. And I think that is a benign statement that, that you see in public property frequently. And I just don't see this as problematic. And in terms of being protected speech, either it is a business, in which case it's commercial speech, which is entitled to less protection than other speech, or it's not. We can't have it both ways. So I don't see a legal problem here. I think this is a policy decision for the town board rather than a legal issue. And I'm not advocating for or against allowing this to occur. I'm only saying that I don't see a legal impediment.
And there's no distinction. I mean, the thing that I keep focusing on in my head is in Adopt a Highway, which was an example raised by Ken, it just says Adopt a Highway, sponsored by Acme Widgets, and that's it. Here it's, beach cleanup sponsored by Acme Widgets. Here's a QR code to the merch page on our website if you want to buy our stuff. So they're not exactly the same animal.
But if you read their page, Ben, when you buy their stuff, they're putting it towards these very things. Listen, I think, quite frankly, this is something that is a good move for this community. It's a good move for all the other communities on the East End that have utilized it. Listen, if you guys choose to go a different direction with it, that's your prerogative. I got no dog in the fight, other than I think this is a ridiculous argument.
Ken, stop. Because I'm not advocating for or against it. What I'm saying is we weren't given the full information and we should just have a look at it. I mean, before I give a dime, write a check to any charity, I look to see how much goes to administration. What do they do with the money?
I guess you should have asked that question when I presented it back 5 months ago too.
Well, it wasn't clear that this was the setup, but.
I think I made it pretty clear, but it's fine. You guys you have at it. It's fine.
Did we sign an agreement for this outfit?
No.
Anything? No. I mean, I'm just looking at it as a simple, if the highway department did it themselves, put up a post, put a framework, with some baskets in it next to the trash can, I know it's labor, I know it's material, but not much. But here we're actually getting into a business with somebody that I didn't realize.
I think saying we're getting into a business with someone is a stretch, but they've put things in the ground that allow people to pick up a basket and clean up the beach. If they get broken, if they get damaged, they come back and replace them. We're not obligated to do a thing with them. They're not obligated to be sponsored. It's just a decision. And honestly, when I sat before this board and presented it, every one of you sitting at the table was in agreement to it. I gave a PowerPoint presentation that was presented from them with all of their slides with an exact description of what they do. If you want to reverse course on it, then that's your prerogative and I have nothing to do with it. But I'm just letting you know that this idea that there was not the proper information was not given is just not true. So, but I leave it to you. You're the governing body, and if you want them removed, I can certainly contact them and ask them to remove it.
No need to be so defensive, Ken. Because what I would actually like is for you to resend that PowerPoint to me so I can have another look at it and go back and look at that work session tape and see what happened, because my memory fails me. And it may be okay. Like I said, I'm not advocating for or against it. What I'm reacting to is your defensiveness. So I'd love to just
I
look at it.
apologize for my defensive Ben, but I've actually been a little bit under, this has been under a little bit of scrutiny for me. And this seems like, for somebody that was, all I did was present something to the board, ask for your approval, and then execute it. And now because a person that has brought this to the community and said that they think this is a business use on town property, which we've already established is not the case, legally.
Establish that.
Well, I think the attorney said there isn't a problem. I mean, this.
Well, he doesn't.
Okay, so
He says the policy
I'm
issue.
defensive about it because I presented it, and it's been presented in the paper and presented in letters to people, that it sounds as if I did something that was underhanded in my presentation. So I apologize for being defensive, but I can also, the PowerPoint is being put up on the screen right now that they presented.
Oh. Yeah, this is,
Could somebody just send it to me? So I can look at it.
yeah, no, but I mean, it was clear, I mean, you know.
And I want to be clear that
There's the QR.
I certainly am not implying that you've done anything underhanded or weird. I'm just saying, I don't remember what happened back then. I'd like to go back and have a look at it. It may be fine.
Okay.
May just be fine.
Would you like them to stay in place while we're thinking about this, or would you like me to remove them?
No. Leave them in place.
Okay.
It may be fine. At least that's just my 1 out of 5 opinion.
So, Bert, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. I personally despise signage on the beach. When Ken first brought this up, my gut reaction was, ugh, not another thing at the beach, because it's one of my pet peeves. But then the more I thought about it, I realized that it's a program that the town's not gonna have to spend any money on. We're not gonna have to do the labor to put it together or find the funding for the baskets. It'll be fully maintained by them.
I remember that.
It's something that, you know, when I'm walking the beach, I always want to pick up all the trash, but I don't always have enough hands to pick up the trash. And when I'm going to the beach, I'm not thinking, ooh, I should prepare to pick up trash. So I don't think to bring a bag. So I do think it's something that's handy for the public. And in my mind, I was looking at it as a trial. We'll see how it goes. And if it's not working out, we can call them and they can come remove them. If there's a problem with it going forward, if baskets seem to be missing, if it seems like it's not actually serving a purpose, we can call them, have them remove it. It doesn't cost our highway anything. It doesn't cost the town or the taxpayers anything. So I also did go on their website before we approved them, and I looked it all over. And it seems like the sponsorships for the signs on the baskets go to directly paying for the maintenance and upkeep of those signs and baskets. And then the merchandise goes for their shellfish seeding program or whatever it is that they're doing on that side. So it is kind of like a public-private partnership, but when I read it and I looked it over, I didn't feel like it was a business, like they're actively soliciting or going around saying, hey, buy my t-shirts. I felt like it was more passive, and it served more of a public benefit than it did bring them profit, was sort of the way I interpreted it. But if it is a real eyesore where it's currently positioned, I think we could probably move it. It might be better over by the side where we have the fishing line, collector thingy. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
A little
So,
monofilament
I think
too.
we could look at putting them in less annoying spots, if that's really like in the middle there when you drive down the road.
I actually thought it was called the fishing line collector's thing.
It's a description of what it does.
We try to place some proximity, they try to get them near a receptacle, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you can bring it back, they can dump it in the can. We can, we'll talk to them.
So it didn't dawn on me that it would have been a business on town property. Just the way they have their model set up and the amount of municipalities that they already work with. It was something like 105 different stations all over Long Island. So it just didn't strike me that that could be a direction to look at it from. So, those are kind of the things I took into account when looking this over.
Let's just, I don't know, let's talk about it next week. Let me just look at this stuff.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
What do you think?
I am embarrassed because I take the blame for it because I appreciate you bringing it forward. I think it needed to be brought forward. I thought for sure last week someone would have brought this forward in the town because it was just in the paper and there was a lot on this, okay? I didn't pay close attention and I think I made a mistake, okay? That's what I'm trying to say to you, okay? I think it does open up the box, okay, for other people. At the same time, we're talking about doing business on town property, and we were talking about $250 going to $350. And here we have something that's there that we receive nothing for, and it does advertise somebody's business, okay? So I don't think there's any way of getting around it, okay? And I think it creates, what would happen if another vendor came along and they said, you know, on the trash cans, I want to put my logo of shop here. Okay, we wouldn't do it for free. We would probably look at it and say, or we would probably look at it in a little bit more detail as to, do we want that to be? What this reminds me about is, I know that school districts in the past, okay, have been approached, and some of them did it. They had the school buses and they put McDonald's on the side of the school bus. Now, we're talking about apples and oranges, but I'm just saying to you, I think it does have to be looked at and because it is in my eyes, okay, you're promoting somebody's business. And I think it opens up for other people looking at it. Why can't I do this?
But also, I just want to reiterate the fact that it's not free because we are getting the service that they're providing.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not like labeling garbage cans.
I'm sorry, what service are they providing?
They're putting these cans out there so people can help clean the beach.
Okay.
And we're not paying for it, we're not maintaining it.
Well,
we're
I
not-
think you're providing free labor for their, by picking up the garbage, you're providing free labor to them so that they can sell advertising. That's the way I look at it. They have an extra spot on the sign, that's 14 by 3 that says, please sponsor. Not only do they have their own advertising with a QR code, they have a separate little square or rectangle where they are soliciting for, to try to get somebody else to sponsor it. So, that's why when I called the guy, I said, well, you could put your company name there and sponsor it for $500 per year, not just a one-time deal. And it's $500, and that's what it is this year. And he has the ability to raise it again, right? He can make it $1,000. And like I said, if he puts it to a national brand might offer him, thousands of dollars. And so those hundreds of units in all these towns is now worth hundreds of thousands of
We
dollars.
can get rid of them. And
Yes.
his
I
private
think
business.
they should go. I don't think the litmus test around here should be that other towns do it. I think we have,
Make sure it works for our
good
town.
for us.
I don't agree with your example, by the way. But let's talk about, let me just look at the stuff again.
I think,
Talk about it next week, but
all right.
we are getting a service in return. And whether it weighs out and it's, quid pro quo, I'll have to take a look at it, but, But thank you for bringing it to our attention so we can actually have this conversation, because this is not the last time we're gonna see this.
Thank you, Bert.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bert.
Anyone else in the public who wishes to speak? Okay. Next agenda item was, we had gone through all of the other environmental and secret fees for site plan review, planning board, zoning board, wetlands applications. I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, the environmental review. The only one that we had not looked at yet was the dot code, and that was twofold. One is we needed the dot code changes that we had made to be formally adopted by the state, because just making sure that we lined up the right code. So
We get that acknowledgement back?
Amber's on, I believe it did come through, but Amber, if you can confirm. It was adopted formally by the state. Okay.
Yay.
Oh, and there she is.
My mic's not working.
Oh, okay.
Away from the desk, and then when you said that, yes, we're,
So the dot code has been,
yes, it was adopted early April. I just got this last week.
okay.
It's
Took a little while.
out of order.
All right, so we have a code section that we can proof our changes against.
Yes.
So that's good, yes. And Back you go, because you're getting a million people getting their beach stickers. And then the other thing is I think a request had been made that the WMAC wanted to just take a look at it. So did the liaisons bring it up with them last week at the WMAC meeting?
Albert, did you have any comment? We didn't talk about it at the meeting.
No,
Yeah, but,
going through application.
yeah. Would you like me to bring it up with them now or before the next meeting?
Well, I was hoping that we would set the public hearing for this on Monday.
Do it anyway.
But then if they have any substantive changes, then we would have to hear it again. So it'd be better to get their comments before, unless we just proceed. We didn't ask planning board, we didn't ask zoning board to weigh in. But
This wasn't talked about. They did start to talk about the town docks.
Yeah.
Then they were going to deliberate privately and get together and make suggestions to the committee. They didn't talk about this at all. No,
okay, so it didn't get put on their agenda.
Yeah, it was a lot of doc talk and the meeting went on forever.
no, the docks, three docks, Congdon.
Yeah, no.
Harbor.
What I'm talking, this is just having to do with the environmental.
Yes, this wasn't on their agenda.
Okay, so it didn't get.
Why don't we set the public hearing and email this to the WMAC and ask for any written comments they have?
That's fine.
I mean, it's, because their next, right, because their next meeting is.
Is a month
It's a month.
Yeah, so,
Okay. I prefer that, yeah, just because, and I would ask for their comments by like Friday morning.
I think that's fair.
Sorry about that. There was a lot of business on the agenda. Discussions went on forever.
And then, of course, I would suggest that you make those, if you do receive written comments, that they be made a part of the record of the hearing.
Well, if there was something we wanted to quickly adjust this before we post it for the public hearing. Because we generally try and post the public, the agenda for the town board meeting on Fridays. So I'd want it to be final so that Amber can
Sure.
have it properly published. But my question was, reading through this, did anyone have any other changes to this? I mean, it's pretty,
Yeah, it's pretty standard with the other ones that we've done.
No,
yeah,
didn't look any different.
my only thing, and I have to just double check the references, but it looks like they've been made, was just because, just making sure that it fit in properly with the adopted law.
Right.
And, so we were in the right section. Because I know even before this, I was trying to put the permit application fees in the wrong section as well.
Yeah.
I mean, everything else is pretty
correct.
standard along with the other 5 that we adopted.
Setting the public hearing for Monday?
Even I think it was a good piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
It's 19th or 20th?
That would be the 20th? I don't know.
19, I think.
15th.
The 19th,
20th is,
Tuesday.
yeah.
Yeah, because today is the 13th, I'm off that. Yeah, so the 19th.
Albert, in fairness, I have to say that these things are always a team effort. So I had a lot of help from the members of the board and staff.
Don't be so self-effacing.
Check. Praise.
I'll take some credit. I don't mind. I gotta grab it when I can.
Do I need to do anything or will someone send it to WMAC?
Christina will follow up on that, to send it to them. Or Jessica. Okay, all right, done with that topic then. Next, capital planning met, and one of the things that we were talking about at our last meeting was we have an equipment reserve fund. And this was something that was established years ago, I believe, when Hard was highway superintendent. And there is money that comes out of the operating budget every year. I didn't bring my budget in to tell you exactly which line it is that funds this account. And then from there, we use it to buy bigger pieces of equipment. So we sometimes, some years we're accumulating funds, Other years, we're spending down some of those funds. We generally finance the bigger equipment purchases. And what this allows us to do is, instead of having to replace an excavator that might cost the town $750,000 and having a big budget hit one year, we're able to flatten the spending curve. So what you,
I'm sorry, where's it get funded from again?
from the operating budget.
Okay. So they pull chunks out of it every year?
Yes, so in 2025, we pulled $110,000.
Right.
It's in the public works line, I believe. Is that 40? No, not 4560, am I too high? Let me just see if I can find it quickly. Anyways, I'll find it at some point. But anyway, so over the years, we have the spreadsheet, and I apologize, I forgot to give it to staff to post on the website, but it is there now, Christina? Yes, okay. So over the years, we have funded multiple dump trucks, excavator, grinder, Mack tractor, a loader, a hook lift truck, and
It's a hook after that. Don't worry about it.
that's why Ken and Ron are here, is to explain what some of these things are.
This sucks.
It's a roll-off truck.
Use the hook to grab the bucket and pull it onto the truck or to release it from the truck.
Oh, thank you.
So, and what we have to do in order to spend money out of this equipment reserve fund, we do have to always have a resolution, and it's a permissive referendum, along with authorizing the debt, which generally it's, 3, 4, or 5 years payoff terms. So,
So there's basically a down payment, and the balance is a 3 to 5 year loan.
yes, yeah.
And the loan comes from
Um,
Chase Bank or?
Whoever, so we have different companies that we work with. We haven't gotten anything that's so big that we've needed to go to like Munistat to go for fund, bonding. Generally, there's 1 or 2 companies that will,
That was kind of
that
my
work
question.
with the vendors, and we'll have this financing set up in place to work with municipalities.
And if,
And also, once in a while, like the excavator, we were able to get a grant. So if you're looking at the schedule, and you can see in 2017, we did purchase over a 5-year period the excavator. And 2017 through 2021, we were paying it off. We were in for a grant application, and we got the funding earlier this year, 2025, to cover a portion of it. $78,000 came in. So because it was paid for out of the equipment reserve fund, when we do get a grant reimbursement, or we sell an older piece of equipment, we put that money back into the equipment reserve fund.
and so the down payment's paid, there's some sort of borrowing. Putting grant money aside, if that is paid out of the operating budget as well, then
No,
the debt service.
no, the debt service gets paid out of here, and that's what this schedule
Oh,
is.
It's paid out of the grant reserve fund, or
Out of
the
the equipment
equipment
reserve.
reserve fund?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and that's why this schedule is before you, because there are 4 different pieces of equipment in doing good capital planning, as we're supposed to. We need to, let's see, walking floor trailer, which the gentleman will explain shortly exactly what that is and what the need is. So there's 4 pieces of equipment that will need to be replaced in the coming years. So the walking floor trailer, the Hyundai loader, a dump truck, and sweeper. So in the Capital Grants and Planning Committee, we sat down and looked at this, and then played with this to say, okay, at the very bottom, you can see what the equipment reserve balance will be each of the years if we take on these purchases, and the funding, blowing out the financing options that we have as a possibility, what our fund balance would look like. And because of that, even though there is a need for some of these things, we will try and limp along with some, because we just can't possibly put on this much in the current year or even over the next couple of years without stringing out the financing.
So there's $154,000 there now.
We started the year, well, that's where we expect to end the year.
Yeah.
If we were to purchase the walking floor trailer. So we started the year with 111,000. We pulled 110,000 in from the operating fund. We got the excavator grant. The loader was already in the queue and the hook truck was already in the queue. So
What is the 78,000 for?
that was, we got a grant reimbursement.
Can't read what's in the red.
Oh,
I can't either.
$47,312 per year.
What is, that's the sale of the loader?
No, that's the purchase of the loader. That's the financing,
Right, so it's the purchase broken down over 4 years.
yes.
So, why does this not add up?
Are there any other grants that haven't been paid out yet?
No,
How's that? Sorry.
Everything, all the grants are all
yes.
whole, we're whole on all this.
Yes, because when we went for the grinder and the excavator years ago, we did get the grinder grant in 2021, and then we got the excavator in 2025.
Okay, it
And
doesn't matter.
the hope was for the, and actually on the grinder, it was more than 26,000. We were able to pay off the remaining payments on the grinder when we got that grant. And we actually had excess that was able to reimburse the fund for 26,742. And then, but you never know when those grants are going to come in, if there's even grants available. And the excavator, we were hoping for a larger portion, 120,000, 125,000, I think was what the expectation was. But they base it on hours of operation and use in areas that the grant specifies. And so it ended up being a lesser
So we
percentage.
got 80, 78
Yes.
and a half. Okay.
So what I'd like to do is turn it over to Ken and Ron to talk about the various pieces of equipment and what the future looks like for replacement, and then we can get back to the details of financing again.
So, so the four pieces that Amber brought up that are at the lower portion of the chart, starting with the walking floor trailer, the loader, the dump truck, and the sweeper. Those are the four that we've identified as what we're going to need coming up and, in the future here, moving down the road. The walking floor being the priority this year at the moment, and then trying to, hopefully limp through with some of the others that are still okay, but will definitely need to be replacing, down the road here.
Can you go into more detail what the walking floor trailer is? Because we've discussed it at the
Yes.
capital
I have no
planning
idea
and
what it
grants
is.
committee, but.
So,
Do we have them now?
To educate people.
a walking
More
floor
like that.
trailer, Ron could explain even better, but basically well, you go ahead and explain, because you run it all.
So when you go, you see where the construction debris pile is in the recycling facility, so there's always the Mack tractor and a big trailer. That's walking floor trailer, the technical name, real name is a live floor trailer, so currently we have an 85-yard trailer that we load the construction debris, sometimes metal in, and we take it to Matatuck Environmental or Crown Sanitation. When we first bought this trailer that we currently have in 2008, we were going to Brookhaven landfill with it. So what the trailer does, it's open top trailer, it doesn't dump, so it doesn't matter the ground that you're on when you're unloading. So basically it has 11 fingers in it, and they all go out and then they retract at different moments to come back, and then they all move out again, and it takes like 15 minutes to unload the trailer.
So as opposed to a dumping mechanism, it just moves out slowly out the back of the trailer flat, and then just keeps moving it out.
It's hydraulically driven from the hydraulics from the truck.
And how do you get the metal off the floor that's walking out? Do you-
It falls out the back door.
Yeah.
You open the back door,
Yeah,
and you
it
can,
falls
anytime you
out.
wanna come down and look at it, if it's empty, we'll fire it up and you can watch.
Yeah, I want to see this thing.
There's plenty of YouTube videos out there too on
Yeah. So,
What's
So
the
what do we have
advantage,
now?
what's the advantage of a walking bed in a dump?
So a dump is probably the biggest size that I would feel safe pulling, I've been driving trucks for over 30 years, would be like 60 yards. So that trailer is 13 feet in height and 45 feet long. So think of that piston going up in the air. You're roughly 50 feet up in the air, and you better be on level ground because you're gonna roll it. On this trailer, it doesn't matter. You can be on an angle, the grade. It's safety for us.
And the one we have now is old and
One we have now, we bought in 2008. We've done 3 major repairs to it, 2 in-house. We've rebuilt the floor. We rebuilt the side interior walls. Sent it out to a Fatex, the name of the company, that they replaced a lot of the structural rust issues that we had with it. And
They replaced high beam pieces underneath the floor.
And right now, there's no metal to re-weld new components to.
Right.
And, you know, we have probably some of the best mechanics and fabricators that any highway department or whatever would around, and they can't work on it anymore.
They said they're maxed out with what they can do to it.
okay, thank you.
So this is your highest priority of the 4 pieces of equipment that you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, I would say it definitely is the highest priority because it's certainly the one that we use the most. It's got a huge, cost advantage to us because of us being able to truck these, the construction debris material out of here. And we even backhaul things sometimes with it as well. But it is, if it goes down into a place, it can be a huge, we don't have the capacity to, we have a dump trailer, but it would never hold as much. And we'd never be, and it's aging as well. And we'd have to contract with somebody to do it, and it could be, it's a significant number. Ron's got some, we went back and looked at some of the things. I can give you some of them, just as an example, the last 3
So
years.
when we bought this trailer, just a little background, it was back in 2006. Al Kill was highway superintendent. We pitched, Brian and I were the drivers back then. We pitched buying this. So once we bought it, we dropped the carting budget of what we used to pay when Manitowoc Sanitation used to pick up our demo by almost $100,000 in 1 year. So over 18 years, if you guys can do the math, that's almost $1.8 million because we're hauling it ourselves, we saved. I don't think there's any other piece of equipment this town has ever purchased that has saved taxpayers that much money. So with that being said, I went back the last 3 years. Right now, we're paying, 2022, for instance, we did almost 1,300 yards of, 1,300 ton we carted out. So that was like $130,000, what we paid. If we had to have that, I called them yesterday to get a price if they had to pick it up. It would cost us $190,000. So it's $60,000 right there in 1 year savings. Last year, if we didn't have a trailer, we would have spent another $77,000 in hauling. And 2024 would be another $72,000 we would have spent. So, if this trailer goes down, we're really hurting.
The savings you're talking about, though, does not include our labor. When we outsource.
You're paying me if I'm driving that truck or sitting at, doing other work at the recycling center.
And usually, and even when we've had, there was an instance before my time, but Ron referenced an instance where they did have to have, who'd you say it was?
It was Winter Brothers.
Winter Brothers, but we still loaded it. We loaded the trailer for them, so we weren't taking the driver and doing it, but the labor is still the same. You're gonna have a guy running a loader and loading the truck.
We do, on an average, we can do, go into Cutchogue, it's like a 2-hour round trip. When we go to Riverhead, sometimes Cutchogue, we can't get there, it's 3 hours. When we were going to Brookhaven, it was 4.5 hour round trip. So we've cut things down and, to save money.
So this thing says a new one is 150K?
It's, we got
Roughly about-
roughly with the new, it's about, yeah, I mean, the only variable, they're about $130,000 for the unit that we need. And then for the only thing that wasn't really factored into the original, was, the tarp that goes over it, which is it goes out, it's got high tension springs that, allow it, go out, roll it out and bring it back. And that's the kind of thing that we can, that outside of this, they can do that within the place that we purchase it, whoever bids on it, or we can also take that out of, an equipment line to take it to a fabricator that, installs it for us separately but generally that's gonna be, $10,000 to $12,000 probably for the tarp system.
Is there any resale value on the one we have?
What I've heard from talking to these guys, maybe $15,000, but I personally would keep it as a backup, just in case something, or we have an overabundance of work that we get involved in. To me, it can't handle everyday use anymore.
Yeah.
But if you have to use it
But it can handle
sparingly,
light use.
could be worth more to us to have as a spare than to sell.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see us hold on to it because I don't think the trade-in value is so great for it that we could certainly utilize it. Because there are, we could haul metal material with the old one too. It could be a place for us to put things, and if the other one went down and for some reason blew a hydraulic line and we had to, in a pinch, we were sort of have too much material sitting there that we gotta get rid of, we could utilize it, so.
It's also a thing that could be a possible grant for it. I believe the one we have now, we got some money back from the DEC grant because they're using it for recycling.
Right, and I did talk to Jen Messiano during our capital planning back a number of months ago when we first started kicking this idea around, and she did say that there would be, especially because it has to do with the transfer station and the recycling center, these things, and this one, since it's specifically for the recycling center, there would be grant opportunities for it. What that number is, I don't know, but she's definitely looking into when the DEC brings these things up. Similar to like what Amber described with the excavator issue was, we utilize the excavator on the road too, but 90% of what the excavator is doing is up on the hill when you see the recycling, using the grinder to recycle all that organic material that we have up there for mulch and topsoil and such. But that's what the DEC looked at. This is something I think the DEC would look at it and say, the 100% use of it is being used at our transfer facility for recycling. So I would like to think, Jen seemed to feel, as confident as she could that there would be funding available for it. But just so you know too, just like the excavator, the DEC, you can get into those agreements with the DEC, which is great, and you will get the money, but it's not like you're getting the money right away for it.
Yeah, and it's like.
It took us 5 years, but in this model that Jay, set up, which I think is a great model, there's a place to put that money back in whenever it comes down the pike. But I think it's, it is long distance planning for these things. I will say, I feel like our fleet in general, is in good shape. And when I say fleet, I'm talking about a lot of, I'd say the majority of what we have is good. But something like this is, a vital piece of our fleet right now. And it's almost 20 years old. And, it's a strong need. But I think we're getting to a place, if you see some of these other items that were listed on here, we're getting to a place where I feel like confidently, like once with the larger trucks, we might not have to look at another large truck like that for another 10 to 15 years, especially because, as Ron pointed out earlier, we have an excellent mechanic crew and an excellent maintenance crew and guys that know how to do a lot of things. And so believe me, they get every ounce that they can out of these things. And if they're telling us we're taxed, then I think in the case of this, I think that's a pretty, it's a pretty strong message.
Maybe they can fix my 20-year-old pickup truck.
They probably very easily could.
The thing to keep in mind,
Why in this 2025 column, that you show, that's an expense for this year?
yes,
Well, the ask is that they buy this thing now.
Well, that's, I understand that, but even if they bought it now, that expense wouldn't be 37,000.
Yes,
They bought it,
Yeah, that's,
because we're financing it across the 40 years. So the first payment would be this year. We'd have to make the first payment on it this year.
the first payment.
Yeah, that's the first portion of the
The
payment.
upfront.
That's the estimated first
So
portion of the payment.
just hypothetically, let me ask this question, so this is, this would be in the budget for the coming year?
No.
This year,
It's in the budget
it's in the
right now.
budget now.
It's in the budget now.
Right.
yeah, the 110,000 is in this year's budget, so that's already, I think that money gets transferred quarterly. The 110,000 gets broken down into 4 quarterly payments.
And if we, well, obviously, we would have to go out, if we get the blessing, we have to go out to bid for this, right? And then we'll go out, well, once we're out to bid, the construction of the trailer takes about, well, let's just put it this way, they said they could have it, the couple of companies I've spoke to, it's about a 3 to 4 month window to get it. I mean, that the time frame they need to produce it.
And the next purchase is not until 2027, so.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I want to
Don't
finish
worry
with
about
this.
that right now.
To go out to bid, who designs the bid, documents?
That would be, I have the specs
Mhm.
for what we need for the trailer. And I would put out just like I would, I did for, one of the trucks that we bought or anything, we put out a bid spec. And we put it out there to bid and see, who comes back with the lowest bid or the best bid.
Are the specs generic enough that you can get competitive bidding?
I think they're generic enough that you can get competitive bidding. It seems to be that they have gone down a path now of aluminum seems to be the popular method now versus steel. And so, yeah, I think there's at least 2 companies on Long Island that do these right now, and I'm sure there would be other ones. There's another national outfit that would probably bid on it, but, in talking to, like Ron, when we had discussion about, but even talking with Jay, sometimes with some of these, you try to, you want to design the spec too, so that you can also have accessibility to maintenance of these things if we need to. So, sometimes you might get a bid from a national company that, can come in, let's say $10,000 less, but you might have to haul the machine, you might have to haul the trailer to Pennsylvania to get it, repaired if it was something we couldn't do in-house. And then you're like, well, that's not really very helpful to us, especially, we're already sort of hamstrung a little by our location with the ferries and such, but there are 2 companies on Long Island that I think could both be very competitive. And I think to your question, this type of trailer it's pretty a standard kind of, the specs on them are all going to be very similar.
Yeah, all the other towns use East Hampton. I know just bought actually 3 trailers. There's the trailer that we actually have right now is called the East Trailer. There's another company on Long Island that's Mac Trailer. Totally separate company from the tractor that we have. But there are 3 or 4 companies out there, and it's just a different name on the trailer. They're all built the same. They use the same floor style. It's just, buying Ford, Chevy, or GMC. They're all the same vehicles. It's just different names on them.
How much floor maintenance is required over the years?
With the trailer that we had, because it was steel, the problem that we had with the road wash was rusting out. So we had to pull all the fingers out of the floor. We replace some of the metal portions under that. Other than that, with the newer
That was
trailer,
just once?
that we did that once.
Yeah.
And then we did the
That was a
walls
big job.
once, and then other structural issues we did once. With the newer aluminum, we're hoping that, and what everyone is having very good luck with them. So the only other issues is the blown hydraulic line that we have machines in-house that replace hydraulic lines. which on this trailer, we've probably blow one tomorrow because I'm gonna say this, we've probably only blown for the main lines. We've had to replace almost every steel line that is in there.
Yeah, you
Like I said,
totally
we-
confused yourself.
Yeah, like I said, we've had this trailer 18 years. We bought it for around $75,000 when we bought it. And 2007 is when we bought it and received it in 2008.
Ken, do you think you could get by, since we're talking about it now, okay, is it something that you could get the rest of the year out of before you made this kind of a purchase? So it wouldn't be in this year, it would be in the following year?
I don't have a crystal ball.
I'm just asking the question.
I would think, I could say, I could tell you yes, and it could blow tomorrow. I mean, I think it's a necessity, and I'd like to see it. We've got the money in there, I'd like to see it, but, you know, it's ultimately, I think it's not something I wanna play around with. We're only in May. It's gonna take it 4 months to build it anyway. We're gonna have to limp through those, not limp, but we're gonna have to get through those 4 months, and hopefully we don't have a major, failure of some type. And so, if we were to make it happen, let's say I can go out to bid by June, you're talking September, if we're lucky, that we get it, right? So we're getting close, but I think it's important to start the process.
Let's see, since this is coming out of replenishing fund,
I
let's see
understand.
the advantage of waiting.
The advantage of waiting, okay, is we haven't gotten into the budget yet. And I understand it, it's in the reserve fund, I understand it.
Okay.
The only impact this would have on the operational budget is if we were going to play with the top line numbers.
Right.
And not
Well,
fund,
that's exactly what I was thinking, okay?
okay. So then so you'd want to possibly pull out the 110 or reduce the 110 for 2026.
Well, maybe the question is really, what about these other three
Well, that's-
pieces of equipment?
That's why, before we start to make those decisions, let's go through the rest of the list so that we can get a better understanding of timeframe on those and necessity.
So you want to talk about the load, the others too?
Yeah, the loader would be next on this list at least.
The loader, yeah, so currently we have how old's the Caterpillar loader at the dump now?
The one we're using now, Mark Ketchum purchased when he was in office. I want to say it has roughly 15,000 hours on it. HON and Cat, they recommend 10,000 hours to start looking, so we're getting past the 5,000 hours.
Right.
And that's the one we use 7 days a week, 6 hours a day at least.
Yeah, and we have another cat loader that's even older than that. That was, so the hope was that we would take the loader that's currently operating at the transfer facility. That loader would go into the role of the oldest loader that we have, which is used for, in case we have, an emergency. It also, we use it for, some things around the facility. We move fuel tanks with it. It's a backup if the one at the recycling center goes down. Just because, these guys are driving a lot into the construction debris area, and there's always a lot of nails and screws. And so that loader is used as a backup. So the existing loader at the transfer facility would become that backup machine for us. And then we would move the current Hyundai loader that we have. That would go into service over at the transfer facility, and the newest loader would come in and be the machine that we utilize on the roads as a backup. They also, both of those, the Cat and the Hyundai loader that we currently have, they also are a vital part of our snow removal, every year, because we hook these cages up to them, and they actually plow a lot of the center roads and some of our more difficult spots. So they have a multi-function. As you can see, this loader is, as Ron explained, it's probably, again, very well maintained, but it's getting past its life. So I would like to see us you know, move to the next, you know, phase of moving that one into the old one into the, you know, into the reserve space and getting another one to back it up.
We had in this schedule the possibility of a trade-in value of 10,000.
That's true.
So, but you're now suggesting keeping.
No, that's
this
not,
one.
no, the trade-in would be of the oldest loader that we have.
Okay.
So the oldest loader that is currently used as our sort of reserve loader, for that lack of a better term, is what they would give us $10,000 on towards the purchase of the new loader. And those loaders generally, I mean, we've gotten them, we deal with all out equipment quite a bit. And they, we're able to piggyback off of, you know, they're on state contracts for a lot of these, and so we're able to piggyback with the, with other municipalities, for the prices of those. Now, I mean, this is a price for this year, but, you know, and it will go up, but, you know, generally, once they're off the state contract, it's usually like about a 51% discount off the retail price of the machine. So, so that's a plus. And again, this is another, the loader is one that, in my discussions with Jen Messiano, is also, would be available for hopefully some DEC reimbursement and grant money.
What would you project that to be, Ken?
The cost?
The grant?
It's hard to say. I mean, based on what, I mean, if you went off of the excavator example, the DEC reimbursed them, I think it was, I think it was 60% or 70% of what it was, roughly, because I forget what's the number, you know, how we broke it down, but that was because it's utilized in two different forms. You know, it's utilized to transfer facility, but also out on the road. This could be, you know, looked at as a purchase specifically for the transfer facility, and then I would like to think that they would cover significantly more because it's specifically for that. I don't remember the exact number, but Jay was involved with
I
that.
felt like the DEC grants were like 50%.
That's what they start at, but they do percentages of where you're using it.
Right, yeah, so it's 50% is the max, and then it
Okay.
decreases.
Yeah, I don't remember. I wasn't when Jay did the last one.
Yeah, I feel like it was, my recollection is, because I think we purchased, what was it, the excavator for like 750,000, and we were
That was the
looking,
grinder, the
The
excavator.
grinder was,
so we were looking at like,
X-ray was about 150, I think, or 180 or something.
right, yeah, I think, yeah, that, oh, yeah, because I think we were looking, I thought that was 250.
No, I don't think.
It might have been, you might have been looking for 250 and you got less than
You got less,
50%, so that
yes.
would make sense.
Whereas I think on the grinder, it was a 50%, I think it got close to 50%.
Because it was utilized, it's solely utilized for the transfer facility, so based on that, I mean, again, it would be a question for Jen, but I would think it'd probably be a 50% match. But a new loader, you know, off the gut, right now, a new loader off of the state contract, identical loader to the newest loader that we own right now from Hyundai, it's around $200,000. So if we were able to get $100,000 back from the DEC for that, that would be great.
And I have not put those in
No, we
this
should not
schedule
be
at all,
even discussing.
because we don't know
Yeah,
if we're gonna get it.
I mean, it's all about, we just put these down, honestly, in our discussion in capital grants. I mean, I just thought it's important to think about it and look at these things futuristically here and identify what we're gonna need, you know, down the road. Again, I don't have a crystal ball for what's going to, you know, blow up next or, you know, have a problem with next. I mean, we have a pretty good idea, and again, our maintenance guys do a great job with these things, but eventually they're gonna age out. You know, the upper line is a discussion for, you know, obviously is a discussion for the budget, when the budget comes, as to how it's gonna be funded. But I think it was a great idea when it was introduced by Jay, and I think it's something that we should continue moving forward with, because I think you know, when you start to realize what we have here machine-wise, and you start to realize what equipment costs, you know, if you don't do some sort of long-term planning for this, like has been done, and we're trying to continue moving forward with it, if you have a failure, you're gonna drop a lot of money on something that you're gonna be, all of a sudden, you're gonna say, we're gonna have to go to the reserve fund for $200,000, and as opposed to, you know, planning accordingly for it. So, you know, I'd like to see this for this year because it's budgeted for it. It's in the it's already here, and it's
About the loader?
the walking floor trailer.
Oh, no,
I think, I mean, I understand you want to hear about what's moving forward, and these are big numbers, but I think we have to really think about sort of what's necessary right now.
Yeah, but if we're talking about capital planning, I just like the loader, like, to make these numbers work, I pushed it to 2027. So, but that was me just looking at it from a budgeting, finance utilization look, but the existing loader, can you wait until 2027?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's way, like
That was
Ron
me
just
picking
said, I mean,
dates.
it's, you know, I mean, you're picking dates, but you're also, you can't predict this. I mean, ultimately, you'd like to replace equipment before you have to replace equipment. That's the whole idea of trying to get onto a cycle with it. I mean, you know, if you got into a cycle with a 10-year cycle with trucks, you know, but we're on a 20-year cycle with some of these things. They're at their end. But it also becomes a larger topic for how do we fund this line? Because, you know, these things are all, from the time that Jay started this in 2017 till now, and I can guarantee you moving forward, the numbers for these equipment pieces are going to increase. I mean, it's just as simple as they get. They're not inexpensive. And so, you know, we may have to look at how we fund this line differently, where we add maybe a little more than we have been adding in past years. But again, that's a discussion for us to have when we have during budget season. But you know, so like the dump truck, the small dump truck that's listed in there, that's the 3,500. Again, that's something we could probably push out a few years because, you know, we have, again, our oldest truck right now in the fleet is operating as our garbage pickup vehicle. That's all it operates as, but it is, you know, it's limping through. But we also have the next oldest vehicle to that, which would replace that when it comes out. So, but we would need another truck to now then replace that one, to put it back in. We still have right now we have 4 trucks that are 4 small dump trucks, the 3,500 series, that are all used on the roads consistently. The one truck is only for doing the garbage removal. And they're all running, pretty well. And the three of them are newer. So, they're in pretty good shape. But the other one's gonna fail and then we're gonna have to lose one out of there. But that's not as big a dollar amount as any of these larger pieces. So I could see pushing that out a few years, and I think we could do that.
Because as you can see,
Yeah, no, I know.
it doesn't work come 2029.
No, well, because then the next one, the last one that's on the list, that's the biggest one, and that's the road sweeper. And so that's, you know, a number based on us replacing the exact sweeper that we have, which has done a very good job for us. We've had it for 12 years now. It's still operating. It's got a lot of wear parts because of the nature of the beast. It's sucking up sand and, you know, stuff off the roads all the time. But to replace that unit that's a large dollar amount. It's $324,000 if you do that. There's a lot of moving parts of those things. But there are also, you know, I started to explore, there are lease opportunities available for sweepers. The sweeper, I could be okay with pushing it off into the distance because if it fails, you know, if it's a catastrophic failure that we can't replace it or we can't repair it, you know, I have good relationships with some of the other municipalities. We may be able to get some sort of shared service where we borrow their sweeper for, you know, a week and trade of doing something else for them or, you know, that kind of thing. I haven't spoken to Ravo specifically about, you know, if they have a lease opportunity that's available for, you know, a machine like that. And they may, you know, but I don't know what that, you know, looks like to us cost-wise as well. But I do think there's ways, you know, you could contract out with somebody in a pinch if we had to. I think it would be mostly the shared service. When I was working for the highway department before I was in this position, you know, we had a shared service that we did with Riverhead one year where I went up to Riverhead and spent 2 weeks with the backhoe and this log splitting device that we had, and split like a whole field of trees, lumber that they had cut down, and split all this stuff up for them. In exchange, they brought their crack sealer down here, which is it's a hot tar machine that pulls behind a truck, and we crack sealed a bunch of roads as a result of it. And they sent an operator with them to, help us, teach us how to use it, et cetera. So like something like that could happen, I think, for a sweeper. But because that's a scary big number, and I know that.
It's really good to hear that those kind of exchanges go on, actually. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are, my experience and my limited experience now in this position has been, there's a great deal of support from the surrounding townships and superintendents, and even further west, I'm part of the county association of superintendents, and I, attend these meetings once a month, and, those guys are always, even further west, town, Smithtown, Islip, they're all very willing to help in a pinch if you need something, so, and they're good resources to run this.
What action has to be taken?
We just have to decide whether or not we want to, given this scenario, do we want to approve and going out for bid on, for, the live floor trail?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think that's the focus. I mean, the rest of it is gonna change with
The rest of it,
circumstances.
right,
It's 2-3 years from now, so who knows?
Mhm.
Unless I can borrow Ken's crystal ball.
Yeah. Just 'cause I feel like that has the base, if there's a failure, then we're reaching into the operating budget to the tune of $60,000-$70,000.
Which is more than the cost of purchasing the machine.
Right.
Yeah.
Double the cost of purchasing the equipment, so it's better
Like I
to.
said, when we bought it the first year, we dropped the budget almost $100,000 because we knew the savings.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Although my recollection is Jay used that for something else.
No, Jay didn't buy this.
Oh, he did? Oh,
Town Fields was,
Yeah, no, this was
Okay.
when we first got into
2008, it came into service.
When we first got into hauling, we had a 1978 cab over Kendrick truck in a trailer that we pulled it from a farm field in West Hampton, just to do like a proof of concept that it was working. And then I believe Art was supervisor when Al was superintendent, and we bought a Freightliner tractor and a Spec Tech dump trailer. And that actually purchase came from town's general fund, because at the time it was pitched that the whole island benefits from the recycling center, not just the highway department, not just this group. So that was a one-time line item in the budget that year, that we used $100,000 from the general fund to purchase those two pieces of equipment. And then 6 years later is when we bought the walking floor trailer out of the highway budget.
Yeah, I remember there was something that we were renting for $100,000 a year, and Jay turned that into the.
That was we were renting a grinder.
That was the grinder.
That Wayne Scott would come over and grind for.
They'd bring him in, they'd bring a guy, an excavator and the grinder, and he would be over here contracted out for him, but it was about $100,000
Yeah,
a year to do
it was like $7,000 a day.
Okay, yeah, all right, that's right, because it was 100,000 plus then this 13,000, 10,000, 10,000.
Right.
Out of here until we paid it off.
Okay with this under condition that I get to see this thing work.
Okay.
Welcome to come anytime, we'll show you.
I was pulling up pictures. So we were talking.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
We've, we used it when we redid the kiddie park. It has special wood mulch, hardwood mulch, so we I went up to Hicksville to a place that makes it, and brought back 100 yards of it at a time when we did the kiddie park, so that it walks mulch out, it walks crushed concrete out of the trailer. It's versatile.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits. That's one of the benefits of how we haul too, because we are able to bring things back. So in a case like where we needed that mulch for the kiddie park, Ron can take a load of stuff off the island, and then he can also bring a load of material back. works. And you don't have to worry about, in a place like the kiddie park, it would have been very tough to bring a large dump trailer in there to dump the material. In this case, you're really able to unload it right on the ground without going up into a tree or a power line or anything else.
Any other questions? No?
I mean, it's a
So,
smart purchase.
Steve, I'll need to work with you to figure out what resolutions are needed.
Sure.
I don't know if we'll get this done by Friday, so we may have to wait until the June 7th
Yeah.
town board meeting for us to do any resolutions to authorize you to.
Okay.
You could work on the, whatever. bid
Yeah, I'll work on the
you have to
specs
do.
and stuff. I've got an outline of it already, so I can work on that. And then you just, if you let me know when I'm allowed to produce the RFP, and then I'll put it out, to get it, I have to put an ad in the papers and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a couple of steps, because it's gonna be putting out the RFP.
Right, because I know in the
And then the
permissive,
permissive referendum is a second step.
right. Yeah, so I'll wait for my guidance, guys, as to when you'd like me to continue that process.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Is there any questions from the public? Okay.
And can I just ask a question? Could you spend, it's hard for me in this small space of time to really understand the highway department. I could never understand it unless you work there and you see firsthand what goes on. I don't know where all the other equipment fall in. I know these are the equipment that we're talking about. Did you have a list of all the rest of the equipment that you have that backs up what you're looking for in
Yes.
years? And I mean, I think we talked about this in one of the.
Judy has it too. Judy has a list of every piece of
Piece of
equipment that the town shall file,
And we-
almost in the years that they were purchased,
This-
what year models they are, and I have a file on every piece of equipment that we keep from a maintenance log file on all of them, plus the purchase, I have another file also of all the purchases for the trucks, their titles, et cetera. Lots of them. And I'd be happy to give you all a tour if you wanna come down and look at any of this stuff, and I can I know it's hard to visualize when I'm saying like, well, when the dump truck, the garbage truck is going out and the next truck is coming in, but I could we could line them up in sort of age order for you, and I could show you. I mean, that sounds funny, but I mean, kind of like, it's not a shell game. It's like, I'm literally going like, okay, so this guy over here, he's coming out, this guy comes into his place, and so on. It's like, it's how we shift it along, but it might be easier for you to, plus if you visualize some of these things and see like how old they are and the condition that they're in, it just helps to put it in. It's easy for me. We've run all these things, and I ran them too when I worked for, on the crew, but so I know where they're all looking, but if you could see them, it might help you to get an idea of what we're talking about and why this exactly exists.
And I would actually like to populate more, because we've got,
Right.
what's upcoming, but, like right now, it looks like 2034, we'll have tons of money if we stay on the current funding plan.
Right.
But that's not the case, because I don't know what other pieces are gonna be.
Well, even in
rolled
that
out.
case, just simply, if you go from 2034 and you go to when we looked at,
Last
just
purchase.
like the last, like if you looked at, say, I guess it was the Freightliner or the Kenworth trucks that we took off, the dump trucks that are off. So that's 2018. If you're in 2034, those trucks might be ready to go by then. There'll be the newest large, those big orange trucks that you see that we have that make deliveries and stuff on the road. Those are all purchased in 2018. So in 2034, they're gonna be 16 years old. So, so anyway, but I'd be happy to take you all through what's down there. I mean, and I can project it out. I mean, there's plenty of things that we could, the part that makes us unique a little bit to some of this too is we do a lot of things in-house here that, because of just the size of the island, but also because of our geography, that a lot of places don't do. Larger towns contract out snow removal. removal, you know, or they do a portion of it and then they get guys to drive their trucks. But here, a lot of those things that we're looking at, like when I'm talking to you about dump trucks and loaders, those are not just things that we're just using for, you know, 9 months out of the year and we put them on the shelf for the winter time. Those then end up going out on the roads and being hauling our salt sanders around and putting plows on them, and the loaders become, you know, plows for snow removal, et cetera. So, you know, there's a lot of multi-use here, but we also, because we have such a great mechanic group inside the highway department, you know, we have to be able to maintain these things. And so we do a lot of things in-house here. That's why when Jay went back with the excavator grinder philosophy, like, we can do that work here, and we've been doing it now for a while, and it's been working great. But, you know, but it took some vision to see that. But that really made a lot of what we do stay right in here in-house. So that's a lot. We're a little bit different scenario than I think some of the other townships when it comes to.
How's the grinder holding up?
It's holding up. It's, you know,
It's a lot of usage.
it gets a lot of usage, but it's very well maintained again. You know, it's got a lot of wear parts, obviously. And so, you know, we look at that every year with the budget as to what, you know, I work very closely with Brett Page is our, you know, he really manages that machine. And so, you know, but that's another one, like, you wanna talk about your projection, that's one that's gonna be,
I penciled it in for 2034.
yeah, pencil it, because it's a big,
I was thinking it might need 2033, but it depends on
I
how.
think that grinder when we bought it was 700,000.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's 1.5 right now for that same
Right.
grinder.
yeah, I was gonna say, it's like a $2 million grinder.
Like, if we were gonna do it right now, honestly, because it's been so well maintained, we could probably get a significant dollar amount for it, you know? Maybe even in the $500,000 range if you did it now, but that still means it's still $1 million on top of that, you know, the new one, so we'll, you know, we'll keep doing a good job maintaining these things, and it helps that we have, you know, without trying to pigeonhole staff, it helps that you have sometimes only 1 or 2 people that operate these things, because then you get a little bit more consistent, you know, maintenance log of everything. So it's like one guy using it, he starts to know, you know, it starts to make one funny noise, he knows what's going on and shuts it down. So then we can address it before it becomes something that's a problem. So. All right,
Not further questions. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
You're sticking around.
I'm sticking around.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna grab a glass of water. Thanks.
They just sort of went to sleep and woke up.
Okay, yeah, I was worried for a second, I thought something happened to the Zoom audience. Okay, all right, so then the next item is roadside signs. And this, I put on because I'm starting to get emails and comments when I'm out and about town about it's the beginning of sign season. And,
Well, one thing that's not in here is political signs.
yes, although we can get to that. I'd like to leave that in here. We haven't dealt with political signs. But, so people are starting to complain because signs are starting to pop up and it's like, oh, it was so nice for a little while, there was no signs on the roads, and now, first, you know, and then that is on, and I did talk to her on Saturday the house door signs were the first ones that popped up, and then a tick control company drove through and was like, oh, look, there's signs. Let me stop along as I'm traversing the island and throw some of my signs down in the traffic circle, in front of town, the assessor's office, things like that. And it's like, okay. And one of the comments someone made is, you have a sign law. Why don't you just enforce what you have for now instead of picking up new legislation? So that's what was distributed, that signs on public rights of way, providing information concerning religious services, service clubs, and community organizations should not exceed 4 square feet in total, and permission for placement of such signs shall be requested by letter to the town board. That is a piece that we've never enforced. And
But also, the way this is written, it basically says that it can be read to mean that if it's a religious sign or a service club or a community organization, then it has to be 2 by 2. And if it's something else, it could be whatever. It doesn't exclude.
Ah, yes. Well, it shall not exceed 4 square feet.
Yeah, if it's one of these 3 things.
Oh,
But if it's outside of these 3 things, what's the regulation? What's the rule? Are they not regulated then?
that's where we need Steve.
It doesn't say that, it doesn't say that it's excluded if it's not one of those 3
I
things.
just say that. That's where Steve to chime in. I don't know if he stepped away for a second.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I was just trying to find the sign chapter
130,
of the town code.
133-27.
Okay, let me pull it up if you don't mind.
Mhm. While you're pulling that up, part of the discussion that we need to have is public rights of way. And getting back to your question, the political signs aren't on here. Last year and historically, in years past, the 2 major parties on the island did have a tacit agreement that everyone followed where you would only put signs like the road, in front of your house, the road is a public right of way. That people would ask for permission from the property owner adjacent to that public right of way to put signs there. And then that fell apart for a couple of years. And last year, I thought the 2 parties agreed again to make sure you got permission. But I also wanted Ken to stay here because it is a public right of way. And when the staff are mowing, like some of the placement of the signs right now are in the way. And so staff have to stop and move the signs, go around the signs. And it's like, I want you to just speak to the problems that creates. So I wanted to get the board's take on this. And do we want to just leave it be and not worry about it? Do we want to start having people request permission? But we'll let Steve answer Benjamin's question first.
I have the code section on my screen. What would you state it again, please?
Well, my question is, the way this is written, only thing that's regulated are religious signs, service clubs, and community organizations. Any other sign,
What subsection are you looking at?
133-27.
Yeah, 27 where? I'm reading
Oh,
through it now.
I'm not looking at the actual code, I'm looking at an excerpt.
Okay.
So,
Looking at this?
yeah,
Yes.
that's what we're talking about, but it's not the whole thing.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
just-
looking
you're
for
gonna go
It's
into the-
133, 27, B5.
C5?
B, as in boy.
B is in boy.
Well, this is a list of permitted, B is a list of permitted signs.
Right.
1 through 6. Number 5 is signs on public rights of way, providing information concerning religious services, service clubs, and community organizations. And it limits the size of those signs and requires permission. But there are other, yeah, that's in the public right of way.
Which is 25 feet from the center line of the road.
Right.
So then if you go down further to temporary signs,
Yep.
6C, it says temporary signs or posters not exceeding 2 feet by 3 feet pertaining to events of general interest, such as auctions, bazaars, benefits, community events, elections, outings, weddings, yard sales, and similar events. Said signs shall be removed within 24 hours after the event. So
Right.
they're not prohibited, but they have to be removed right after the event.
Right, and I don't interpret that to permit them to be in the public right of way.
Okay, so current, although it's, yeah, that would still be in the public right away. I'm thinking of like on 114, I did see a sign promoting the library vote. So that seems like it would be a temporary sign, although it's still in the public right away. So I feel like then we're back in B5.
Right. And then in that case, it wouldn't be allowed.
It almost falls on, wouldn't it almost fall under the political sign, the vote, for a vote like that? Because don't we not allow the political signs in the public right of way, right? It's gotta be on people's lawns or
Well, but that's
or
still
their
technically,
property.
it's still technically the public right away in front of somebody's house, but we
Right.
give a seating control to
Yeah.
the homeowner.
From my perspective for the signs, just so, you know, I think, or from the department's perspective for the signs, I think it's important, if the signs are out there, however it's designated they should be, I know some people's homes, like in the political signs, for example, their homes have a clear path right to the road's edge, right? Some people don't have a hedge or whatever, but I think if we can try to, as best we can, impress upon folks to try to keep within that, you know, on the outside of that 25-foot line, you know, that 25-foot line that we're talking about. I know it's hard to maintain on Shelter Island in certain spots because some roads are older than others and they're a little more narrow. And so that general rule of thumb of 25 feet from the center line to the shoulder, you know. But if they can be on the, you know, the outskirts of that line, so they're not right up on the road's edge and not smack dab in the middle of it, you know, we generally, you know, we try to mow between 6 to 10 feet of the side of the road. So if they were 10 feet back off the shoulder, it would be okay. Yeah, occasionally, of course, guys would get off the mower, have to move them or something like that, or, you know, sometimes run one over by accident or whatever. It's just, but if they're like right out on the road's edge, that just makes for a real problem. I also think it makes, you know, they get, some of them, I saw a couple recently, I had to move them myself because they were actually really close to the road, like a car could clip them a little bit. And they're those wobbly signs, but it's still like, I think it could present problems.
Aren't a lot of the real estate signs out in that area too?
And they are, I mean, generally by someone's roads, but they're not as prevalent as these smaller signs. They're usually taller, they're usually really back almost to the property line of people's yard. If they are out in the road, if they are out in that shoulder, I would say that they need to be, you know, I have contacted real estate agents to say, hey, could you just move that sign back? You know, so it's not right on that road's edge, just because it does make, you know, trying to mow around them more difficult.
I also think if they're too close to the road, it's kind of a hazard. Like if a biker needs to get up by the road, maybe there's a car too close or something, it can.
Well, and honestly, it's a safety hazard for the men too, because they're out there mowing these things, you know, it's sort of, it can be a little tricky anyway when you're dealing with traffic anyway, but if they're having to stop, get off on the side of the road, you know, on the side of the road to pick something up, you know, it can also be problematic. So if they're, you don't want to see anybody get hurt.
Yeah.
So if you got, sorry.
You also, of course, want to regulate the height of any sign that's on a corner so that it doesn't interfere with sight distance.
I think most of the problematic signs, or if you want to call them problematic signs, are just those, you know, there's those small little, they have that little tiny H frame that, you know, if somebody puts a little, you know, 2 foot by 2 foot sign on it and it sits about, you know, 2.5, 3 feet off the ground, those are the ones that seem to have a lot of them. I mean, they come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
They're probably the least expensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stephen, what is a temporary sign? What does temporary mean? Does it mean before an event? Is it 2 weeks ahead of the event, 3 weeks? How do you interpret that?
Well, there's no term of art for temporary.
Right.
It's whatever you deem it to be. I mean, you can regulate that. The local law can provide for the duration with which a temporary sign can be displayed.
it can go up 2 weeks before the event and has to come down right after the event.
Right.
Something like
Mhm.
that, it's not in the code, but.
Well, I mean, right now, we're saying permission for placement of such signs by letter to the board. We could say, we'll give you permission, except you can't put the sign up for, more than 2 weeks, 30 days before the
Right.
event, and then it must come down
24 hours
24
after.
hours afterwards.
Right. So then we could put conditions like that on the signs.
Well, and that's why I was sort of thinking, like, rather than amending code, because we've got a lot of code
Yeah,
amending going on right now.
yeah.
In various stages. So let's utilize what's existing and see if we can tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I was going for, but I didn't know if anyone else had any ideas. If you thought, forget it, don't even touch this.
So I guess my question next would be, would we have to pass resolutions to give permission for them to put their signs up? Or is it, it would be an action of the board in order to give them permission. So is that the appropriate step? It wouldn't have to be a public hearing, it would just be by
Yeah, it would just be
resolution.
I know, I would be sort
Or-
of like, Steve?
Yes, I mean, the board, to the extent that something requires action by the board, it must be by a majority vote at a duly convened meeting.
Right.
All right, so then just,
So then we'd have to approve them by resolution. Okay. So people would have to get them to us in a timely manner in order to get permission to
Yes.
put them out when they want them out,
Right.
because we do special meetings, but that gets cumbersome.
You might want to delegate to perhaps the building department or whatever the appropriate department is, the authority to approve certain types of signs within certain limitations, so that every application doesn't have to come to the town board.
I like that.
do we have to do that via change to this law, or can we do it with policy?
You can probably do that by resolution. Delegate.
But I
Yes.
throw something in.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's feasible. It seems that the signs, the majority of the signs that we see of that little nature, the temporary ones or whatever, seem to appear mostly this time of year, right? Because there's advertisements for businesses and, fundraising events and that kind of thing. Would it be something that would be worthwhile doing, since the way the code's set up, that the board would need, there needs to be a letter to the board that maybe you make a time similar to what we do with the business on town property permitting, where we say they have to have it in by a certain deadline, and then it would give everybody time to do, because if for example, I don't know, just because she's on, but if the Historical Society was doing a fundraiser, they know, I'm pretty sure a lot of these places plan these things out in advance. They know they're gonna have signage up that they wanna put up starting in May. They could come in March and, present that we're having an event in June. We'd like to be able to put our signs up 30 days prior to the event and take them down afterward. I don't know, it just seems like they all seem to come, like the weather gets nice and April and May hits, and all of a sudden now there's signs on the side of the road. And I think it's the same time of year, like we don't see a lot of those signs living around here in the wintertime, right? So maybe if you came up with a designated time for people to put in their application, obviously, maybe somebody doesn't get it all in, you could always, accept it somehow, at a later point, but it's just a thought. It's just a way to do it. It seems.
What precipitated this, Amber?
That I'm starting to get emails and public comment, people, like, I'm out and about, and it's like, the signs, can you guys do something about the signs? But maybe I'm the only one who's getting complaints.
I got some though too. There was a lot of signs. There was like a insect removal company that all of a sudden, literally you drove from north to south and there was 50 signs that I didn't see, Saturday night and Monday morning. I was like, where the hell is all the signs?
Would that be a swarm of insect signs?
Absolutely.
It totally is.
Yeah, I have a question. It seems to me that what I've been thinking about is the statement I think, Amber, you made and Meg, about removal of the signs within a short time after the event. I think something that really tends to annoy people is when the signs linger and the responsible people don't come and remove them. So I wonder whether you want to provide what will occur if the sign is not removed within the specified period. One option would be that the town will remove them and dispose of them, so you lose your sign. Another option might be that you take a deposit and the deposit is forfeit if you don't remove the sign there, or that it's a code violation. Problem is with making it a code violation is that enforcing it as a code violation is that you don't always know who put the sign up.
Right.
And we have trouble enforcing.
How many signs do we have that are put up that aren't the description of, the religious groups or community entities? I mean, how many signs do we have really that go up that don't apply to that section?
Last year, last summer, I picked up at least 2 or 3 different businesses that were advertising for, I don't know, kayak rentals. One was for some sort of, the hydrofoil rental thing. Something else there was another business for lawn maintenance, and then they were all in the town right of way. So a lot of them were in the way, and we picked them up. But you could be, the mosquito swarm was a swarm. There was a lot of signs. I mean, there was probably 40 or 50 signs around Chiltern. So, I guess if you don't manage it, you could get crazy, I guess.
And they do become litter when they're not picked up.
Yeah.
Like the slow the comp plan signs that were out forever just became litter. Like nobody.
I picked one up
Yeah.
on the Alliance Club walkabout the other day. I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
I mean, generally,
They're still
what we've done, and we've always sort of done it at the highway department, even before I was here. If we see the signs that we know that are businesses like that, we generally remove them. We remove them, and then this year, we contacted the mosquito company and said, my foreman, Dave Clark, he collected a bunch, I collected a bunch on my way home one night. And we called the company and, they'll come and pick them up. Or they'll say, I'm sorry, or we didn't know, or whatever. And we'll stockpile them for them and give them back to them. But, I think this is maybe just trying to maybe alleviate that. So,
Amber, the sign that you're referring to from the Shelter Island Historical Society, when is that event and what?
It's June 7th in Annette's on it. I see she has her hand raised as well as you still. So it's June 7th. So the sign did go up more than a month, but now we're like less than a month into it. And I think Nanette will want to speak to it. I also saw Stella had her hand up first. So I'll call on Stella and then Nanette.
Hi, thank you so much. So the Heights is always a bit of an enigma, but I'm assuming that whatever regs we have on the books would apply to the Heights as well?
Yes.
Okay. And would any of the signage pertain to what gets posted on the utility poles?
No, this doesn't address that.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother issue.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the 2 biggest issues that the signs cause us, and we do collect them. We try to be, if they're for nonprofits, we try to leave them there. But if they're for, for-profit businesses, we do remove them and keep them and inform folks to come pick them up. But the 2 big things for us are lingering signs and mowing around signs.
Yeah.
But okay, so thank you.
Nanette?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay, so we have plans to install 5 lawn signs related to events that we have. The house tour is out, farmer's market, the play, the garden party in August, and the oyster event. No problem sending a letter 30 days prior, or now for that matter, to let you know that that's what our plan is. I think we're talking today about our signs, the house door signs, actually. So that I understand this correctly, if you're a homeowner and you would like to place a sign, provided it is 25 feet from the center of the road, you're okay? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
that's.
Yes, I think that's the general rule of thumb, Annette. I mean, the 20,
Okay.
so if you imagine a lane was 15 feet wide from center of the road to where the shoulder stops of asphalt, imagine that there's another 10 feet on the shoulder of grass that is considered the right of way. That's a safe area for bicyclists, pedestrians, a car to pull over. So we try to, if you stayed outside of that, closer to the property owner's side of that 10 feet, that would be the best way to do it.
Okay, well, I think we can manage that. My other question is about farmer's market, because that is a long-term event from May 24th to August 30th this year. So how do we address that with the requirement, which makes sense, to remove the signs 24 hours after an event? So this is, all summer long, so.
But then you're less than 30 days to the next one, I guess. Because it's a rolling event, I don't know. So.
Should we just?
I would think that one would stay up for the duration.
You can make a separate rule for recurring events.
What's the objective? I guess,
Part of it is just the aesthetics, that people are just objecting to a plethora of signs. Like, we're heading into the summer season and it's been so beautiful, and now we've got signs all over the place.
but don't we always have signs? Isn't there always a lot of signs out? For entities, clubs, service groups, whatever, on the
There
island?
wasn't that many for a couple, like, we were in the slow season, and so I think people were just coming off of that, and then now the signs are all
I think we have a quiet space in the middle of the winter. There's not an issue. It's just,
Yeah,
it's just
now
here.
in the
Every summer, we seem to.
It's
go
full
through the same
blown.
thing.
Yeah,
So,
and then we
and
get to the fall, and then campaign season starts, and then there's a whole nother ton of signs that go. So some people are complaining about the aesthetics, and then just when, looking at the code and like, okay, we got the insect ones, then it got me into a conversation with Ken about the extra work that all the signage does for his group. It's like in the fall when the mowing starts to slow down, it's not as big of a deal, but this time of year, it is creating more work because they either have to move the sign or they're skirting the sign,
I think if it was a matter of just, it's a good conversation to have to try to, to get people to get the idea of where for the political season, it's the same thing too. Where people can put the sign so it's not in as much of a, way for the maintenance of the side of the road and for a hazard in the side of the road. But you're always gonna have an incident where it's not. I would say mostly, honestly, the most consistent signage that's always out every summer has been traditionally the farmer's market signs. And after that, like I said, it's been mostly the ones that we've removed have been businesses that have come in here and said we're putting our signs down and try to drum up business to meet them at the beach or meet someplace else. But generally speaking, the signs that have been utilized by the local charities and stuff have not really been a problem. And I think it's great that they're able to do them and it's good for them for business. But I just would like to see them in a place where we're not running them over or plucking them out of the ground all the time.
Yeah, it just.
From my perspective.
It just tightens things up, and it also creates a dialogue so that we can reach out and say, yes, you have permission, but however, take it down 24 hours later. Keep it this far off the road, you should be getting permission from the homeowner that you put the sign in front of, possibly. And do we want them in the traffic circles? The one by Mashamek, the one in the center here, the one over by mini golf.
Well, I don't think any sign should go in the memorial circle right in the center here.
Mm-hmm.
That's really that's
prime real estate.
Yeah,
I don't think they should go in that one. This whole stretch
Immediate
here is
they want
different,
to put in
but
there, I think, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the state says about that stuff, but that's something, you know, I mean, they're not coming out here for any.
I just worry about the distraction of it as well, you know,
Yeah.
because sometimes people don't know how to deal with traffic circles, and then if they're reading signs in addition to.
trying to navigate a traffic circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. that could
I
be
would
a
say, yeah, keep in mind, this one specifically.
We're really talking about 13327B6, because B5 doesn't apply. B5 relates to signs
signs.
that's on premises, outside of premises to which they apply.
B5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just B, section B, including B5, only applies to signs that relate to the premises outside of which they're placed.
Gotcha. I understand what you're saying.
Yes, okay, yes.
Right.
So
Yes.
we're talking about-
Temporary signs.
Yes.
Yeah, 6.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But also, no, B5 also applies.
Because it's signed specifically in the public right of way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it okay,
So
maybe,
B5 is what
Maybe.
we have control over
yeah.
in terms of our public property, and that's what I was focused on today. And the fact that we state that there should be permissions, and we have not been enforcing that.
Of course, your regulation must be content neutral.
Yes.
Right.
Can I just chime in on that, Amber? I had to step away for a few minutes, and I missed the onset of this. I definitely would want to speak with Stephen about that. I think that's where we do have some issues when if we don't like the content and who the keeper of the gate is on the content, and then all of a sudden we tell somebody we don't like that content. So if you're going to have a rule that people can come to and ask for a sign, it may be an extremist, and you might not like the content, and then that's where we're gonna have some issues. So I join in with Stephen on that. We've had some signs over the years where the content may not be in the nature of our community, so to speak. And, but our ability to remove that because of content can come into issue. I would also, if we were gonna look at Stella's question regarding the heights as a private property group, we may have to actually specify that they're a part of this in that law. So, if you're gonna look at this, I'd be happy to get, offline on it and maybe dig a little deeper if you wanted some input, but, I'm not saying I have to be either.
Thank you. But yeah, I just was tossing it out there because we have code section here that, like, I didn't want to change the code. Do we want to start having organizations request permission? And try and guide them to make it easier for the highway guys.
But then again, if we do that, if they don't request permission, we must immediately remove them. If that's the plan, it just is otherwise, then we get into that soft zone and we sometimes do it and sometimes we don't. And oh, you're gonna start reviewing the content of their sign before they put it up there, or, you know, those kinds of things. It sounds simple, but we can make it complex fast too.
Right.
I hate to.
Well,
do
and then if we start getting requests from businesses wanting to put signs up.
Well, but right now it says it has to be religious
Right.
services, service clubs, and community organizations.
I
So I
think-
guess community
yeah.
organizations
Yeah.
could be broadly,
Could be, yeah, broadly
like, that's
interpreted.
where we could get into some
I
content
think
issues.
there's a bigger drafting problem here. Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but large section B, capital B section relates to signs that are located on premises to which they apply. And for instance, political signs don't apply to any premise. They're just generally spread all over the place. And so are house tour signs, so are the,
Well,
But I think those fall under temporary sign.
yeah, but even the temporary sign section is under capital B section, which is outside the premises to which they apply.
well, signs are either on private property or they're on public property. And if they're going to be on private property, they require the permission of the owner of the property.
Yep,
If
that's
they're
out.
going to be on public property, they require the permission of the town. So you can't just pose, I mean, people do it. It's improper for them to do it, but you shouldn't be just posting your signs anywhere without permission of the owner of the property.
And I would join in that the simplest way for us to look at this is have no signs in the public thoroughfare, none. If you want to put a sign up that, we just talked about the 10K today. The 10K can ask people that live on corners and stuff, do you mind if we put a 10K sign on your property? If they don't get permission, it's no. It takes out the whole thing for Kenny. We don't have to worry about the thoroughfares. Historic Society, they want a vote yes sign. Get it out of the 10-foot shoulder, put it on private property, and you don't have to worry about this. I think it takes it. For me, I would rather have no signs in the thoroughfare and have all of them on private property. It simplifies it tremendously.
I don't think that, I think
Yeah.
that would be fine. Yeah,
A workable solution.
we have too many signs anyway, in general, but, that would be the easiest.
This was drafted with that in mind. It just doesn't say that, but the way it's written doesn't apply to most of the things we're talking about.
Right, it seems like you actually need to get permission to put signs on the public right of way if you are a religious or a community organization, or, that's sort of the way the language is written, it's just not clear. Surprise.
It's what we recommend for the political signs. Don't put them in the thoroughfare, put them on private property, 10 feet off the shoulder.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, political signs in particular should not be on public property because then you're lending government resources to advance candidacy.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Ken, that's the solution.
Sounds good to me, Al.
Yeah, so if it's in the public thoroughfare.
Yep.
Then you can take them down.
Right.
But do we have to hold them since they're not town property and hold them and tell people to come pick them up? I mean,
I'm gonna bury you in the lack of simplicity here. The day Memorial Day comes and we put them in the center median, who's taking all those down? Nobody, right? Because they're recognizing people that have been in service, right? So there may have to be a few exceptions, right? So I want it to be simple. I want to say no thoroughfare, but we're gonna have a few, and probably very few, asterisks, so to speak.
Well, Chief, those signs that you're talking about, are they posted by the town itself, or is that posted by some other organization?
The American Legion.
The American Legion puts them right down the middle of town in a center median.
we can make it.
You see, that,
And they removed them promptly though, too.
yeah,
And I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that I'm opposed to that. But I
Right.
just want to say, because as soon as that day comes and we have this rule and we took down 10 other people's signs, or the highway collected them, or we returned them, whatever, they're gonna say, well, how come they can be in the center median? Again, go back to your point, Stephen, of being neutral.
right. No, it's true, and you don't want to be accused of discrimination.
Exactly.
I mean, the content neutral relates to people's First Amendment rights, but excluding one party and not excluding another relates to other constitutional rights, equal protection, due process, that sort of thing.
Can't the Legion just give the signs to the town and we put them up?
So I guess the takeaway from this discussion is that if you want to keep it simple, don't ask the chief for advice.
Oh, no, I knew I was opening up a can of worms with this, but I
Yeah, I
thought.
know. It's just that we have a lot of history and events that, well, not events, but issues that have come up with these, these types of signs. It's not simple, but
Agreed.
Amber, I'm not sure how to direct you on which way to go.
No, I'm like,
In general, I think that 95% of the time we can say, keep it on your own property, put up what you want, 10 foot off the shoulder, and it's not an issue. If it's gonna be in a thoroughfare, then we have to have a one-off for that. And maybe let them come to the town board. Somebody
And
wants
that's-
to have it in
that's
a
the matter.
thoroughfare,
I would agree
it's like
with
a
that. I
business
think-
on town property or something.
I think, well, that's what I was sort of getting at. I think it's the simplest, I think what Chief is promoting is the simplest idea. I mean, really, there really is only a one-off, the way that I think about it. The Legion is the one-off that are right, if we allow them to have the thoroughfare out here that we use for when they put the veterans for Memorial Day, like, that seems to be the only one that really comes up that way. And they go up and then they come down in a few days. They're not lingering forever, but I think keeping them outside the right of way and in front of people's private properties is, I think, is probably the easiest. Much like what we do with the political signs, then you're consistent across the board, that it's not just during political season, but it's during all season, that it's gotta be, you have to get the permission of the people there to put a sign up.
It's the only
Just keep
thing
it
that's
at that.
manageable. It's the only thing that's really manageable.
so then Historical Society is the only one has signs up at the moment. I think so, Historical Museum.
They are, they're the only ones.
Yes, the house tour sign. So what they should then do is, what we're saying is move them back. And then if there's any in traffic circles on town right of ways, out they go.
Yeah, I would take them out of the traffic circles and town right of ways, and anything out past that 10 foot on the shoulder, let them have. Put it up as they want, and then that makes it easier for mowing, makes it easier for tell them where to put it. Cause at least they can kind of space it out, you know what I mean? If they get volunteers to go out and put out the signs, they go to the road's shoulder and
But the
say,
realtors also are going to be affected.
yeah,
That's okay.
that's a good point too. I mean, a lot of those
A
end
lot
up.
of those
hopefully-
realtors are right up,
Yeah, it's true, and they're a problem too. They're more of a problem in a sense, because they're taller and they become an issue for people coming out of driveways and stuff.
Those should be on private property. They should be
They
private.
should-
I agree, yeah.
It says be placed at least 10 feet away from any public or street right of way.
I used to not hear this as the town board not being in support of the house tour. We love the house tour.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm supportive of all these, I mean, all the, the organizations doing this stuff for sure, but I think it is I think what the chief has proposed here is probably the easiest, for as cut and dry as he could be, which isn't always cut and dry, but if, he gets enough.
Stella talked about the utility poles.
Yeah, well, the utility poles, honestly, utility poles are up to the utility. I mean, they frown upon it, they don't want anything on there, but they're not policing the place regularly. I mean, what I would say, anytime I see anything on a utility pole, we take it down.
Yeah.
We take it off. I mean, but that's really the utility poles gig, that's their property. So they could do it, but I know they don't like it. With the few times that they're out here when, they're doing like some roadside cutting or something and their foreman comes out and sees something attached to it, they pull it right off. They don't want anything to do with it, so.
So in those few instances where somebody does, like the Legion, then they will write a letter requesting.
Yeah, we'll say, okay.
Right.
Well,
So essentially, we'll have religious service organizations, religious services, service clubs, and community organizations send a letter requesting to place.
If they want to put it on public right away.
Okay.
But we will encourage everyone to just put it on.
are we gonna go back and redo this legislation? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't, for me, it's not priority. We have so much other things going on. Like, I didn't want to add this. I just wanted to
Okay.
enforce what was on the books
Okay,
without rewriting.
agreed. We have other things to work on.
Yes, yeah, no. I was afraid I was opening up a hornet's nest, but figured.
And Ken, rather than bring any signs in, just have you guys, when they're cutting the shoulders, move them back to the 10-foot line.
Yeah, no, that's what we will do. That's,
Right. We don't want property, it's a mess for us.
no, I don't want to be flexible either. It's a pain. Maybe all the politicians this year should use bumper stickers. No signs.
They last long.
Chris Lewis never used the sign. Never. Ends and a bumper sticker. Not even a bump sticker. Pen and a bag, a garbage bag for your phone. That's what you said.
All right. Any final comments on this?
All right, okay, too. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks again. Thanks again for your help with the walking floor trail too, I appreciate it.
Sure. Whatever that may be.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, the last agenda item before board member reports was pro-housing communities model resolution. Community Housing Board met last week, and one of the things that's always on their agenda is, have we done anything with this? When we talked about it last year, the four of us read through it and said, yeah, we don't like some of what's in here. The information we'd gotten from the state was you had to adopt this resolution without changes. Southampton is looking to adopt it without changes, but they haven't finished like running it up the flagpole. And I thought, since they were working on it, Supervisor Moore has said that once they like figure out what they're going to do with their wording, because their board also had problems with some of this language, just giving up local control, that she would give me a draft of what they did. And considering we have one interim part-time town attorney and they have multiple town attorneys, I would let them do the legwork and
Adopt what they adopt.
exactly, and sort of follow in their footsteps. But I just thought, because the Community Housing Board asks every month at their meetings, like, how are we? I just wanted to pass this around to everyone again to see if maybe new dynamic on the board, if people had, would look at it again and say, no, we can adopt this. The reason for adopting it is it opens us up for additional funding if we need it for community housing.
Well, the things that were problematic before, in my eyes, are still problematic now. That's changed.
Right, exactly.
For instance,
I just-
number 4 at the end, increasing development capacity for residential uses. I don't even know what that means.
Where are you then?
Page 2.
Page
number
two.
Flip it over.
Or increasing development?
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, well, for me, enacting policies that encourage a broad range of housing development, including multifamily housing, affordable housing, accessible, like just in support of housing, like, do we want to actually start putting policies in place rather than looking at things on a case-by-case basis and granting variances as opposed to
I like your idea, which is let's see what Southampton,
whatever
how
they.
far they
okay.
get.
Okay, I figured that would be the case, but I just wanted to, like, New Year,
Right.
it's been on their agenda for, every month for 12 months, and so.
Remember, I was listening to Southold's zoning board last night. Really quite amazing. It's something that we should all look at. I mean, they obviously have their comp plan in, but it's just interesting to see the mapping and what they're doing with zoning. And they're having 10 sessions open to the public over zoning. Okay, it's really very informative. And I think I know we're talking about apples and oranges in terms of staff, but they really I think they did a great job. Okay, the way they're presenting it and being completely open about it. Okay, they're encouraging the public for participation.
That's because they're working on rewriting their zoning code or updating their zoning code?
Yeah, post.
Yes, the zoning
Part of
code.
their implementation.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I talk to Jim Rich periodically.
Finish the comp plan, we can do that too.
Yes. And there's possible grant money out there for actually hiring somebody to help us with that process,
Exactly.
which is,
So what are we doing with this pro-housing?
we're just gonna set it aside, and when Supervisor Moore
All right,
says that they've gotten something passed through to the state with the modification, we'll look at their modifications and see what we can do, if they're able to modify it, or if we're able to,
I started to look at it and the zoning map needs to be in a format compatible with the National Zoning Atlas. I saw something like that. I don't know exactly what that means, in order to comply with this program. We don't have anything like that, really. I mean, I just, as an initial, and Ben, I agree with you that the density in residential areas kind of development in residential areas is kind of open-ended.
And please, I don't want anyone to read this as Councilman Dietz against affordable housing. I'm actually 100% for affordable housing.
Yeah,
It's just that, you know, this doesn't help.
this is kind of interpretive, you know, how do you read it? How
Yeah,
do
no,
you-
but we have to adopt policies that aren't within
Well,
feel and fit.
yeah, the one that gets me is incorporating regional housing needs into planning decisions. So we're supposed to plan to help solve the region's problems. It's not clear. It's just, I think intentionally muddy in some.
I think the reason for that is one size does not fit all. So when you have a document like that, drafted with an eye towards statewide application, it's going to require customization for local municipalities.
Especially when we're probably one of the smallest towns in the state.
Anyways, I wanted to just toss it out there and just make sure that we're still on the same page.
Yes, we would love to do something, almost anything.
Yeah.
To help this town, Shelter Island,
Mhm.
build more affordable housing.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure where this fits in.
And the options that, in order to qualify for the pro-housing funding, was you either had to adopt this resolution, which was the easy step, or pull together 3 years' worth of data,
Which I
Meg
did
would
do.
Meg did.
And we
do.
didn't qualify.
And we didn't qualify, we were short.
And Southampton ran into the same problem, which is. Same
One,
place.
one thought that occurs to me is if you need to adopt that resolution as drafted with no changes, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't also adopt other resolutions to supplement it.
But
It would
those
go-
other resolutions to contradict it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so then we would.
No, obviously you can't, I mean, you can't contradict it, but you certainly can sharpen the definitions and supplement it and customize it through customize your affordable housing program with other resolutions.
Look into that, and hopefully Southampton's looking into that.
Yeah, well, I say we let
Let's
them,
let
because we've got,
South-
with what we have on our plate, I don't want to create another task for us currently.
Okay.
Let's see if we get to a point where we're not able to continue down the housing path that we're going with getting RFQs, and we have to do something ourselves and therefore need funding, then we'll have to really look at this. But hopefully we can do it so that we're not trying to do it ourselves.
Great.
Okay. All right, so then we are on to board member reports. And just throws it in the garbage.
Didn't have any, we had WNC last Monday, but we reported on it on Tuesday, so.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Taylor's Island met this morning, and the cabin is reopened. Getting things spruced up. There's going to be a gratitude barbecue where they will be inviting the committee, foundation members, public works crew, and town hall support staff, and a community member who made 3 picnic tables for the island. So that's coming up. Yeah, there was some confusion last year where misinformation got sent around it, and the public works crew who, was in particular who come out and work on the island thought it was canceled. So we're trying again for Saturday, June 7th. And then I think that was the highlights. He's on the community housing board, but I went
Yeah.
and sat in.
Yeah, that's fun. So I think Community Housing Board has over $1 million in their budget now from the 0.5% fund. Just over. They're very excited to break the $1 million mark. The RFQ should be, responses should be coming in soon. They're
The
gonna,
end of this,
yeah, the end of this week, and then they're gonna look them over and they have to make a decision by June. Early June, first week of June, they're gonna start looking at them. So hopefully we get some good responses on that.
just for the public on those, there will be a couple of special meetings of the community
yeah.
housing board. They'll be noticed, they will open, and then immediately go into executive session.
Right.
So, members of the public may see that, can attend, but it's going to be open and straight into executive session to discuss, the RFQs that are received. So just put that out there so people understand what's going on and why, and it's an allowable executive session topic.
And then there'll be a presentation on the RFQs and which one they go with and why they go with it. So it will all be transparent. They just want to make sure that they understand the information that they're receiving in the RFQ, make sure they're all complete, make sure that, because it's a different type of, it's not just a bid, you're not just looking at the numbers and saying we're going to the lowest bidder. It's, there's design aspects, there's a whole bunch of things to it. So they want to make sure they understand it correctly before putting it out to the public to make sure there's no accidental misinformation or misunderstandings. So we'll be doing that. And then Wetlands Code Working Group met on Wednesday. So we're working through that. We're going to have another meeting coming up. Reed and I are going to go over the possibility of doing some form of administrative review for like just the removal of small things from the wetlands, like bringing properties more into compliance so that you don't have to go through a full wetlands review just to like get rid of the old gazebo or, you know, remove a fire pit, things like that. So we're trying to come up with something for an administrative type of review. So that's in the works. Let's see. Site plan review working group met yesterday. We're gonna go back and look at a whole bunch of different codes from surrounding towns. We did that originally when we looked at the plan, but in digging into it a little bit more, it seems like there's a lot of things that we need to clarify. So we also rescheduled another meeting to continue that work in June. And then today we had the DARE graduation over at the school for 5th and 6th grade.
I'll look to you, Albert.
I'm done.
Oh, okay, no, I didn't want to cut you off. The Community Preservation Fund met yesterday morning. They were talking about the Tuttle Needham Preserve, that they have a contractor that's going in. There are some dead limbs that are hanging up the canopy. He's just going to remove the dead limbs and not get into trimming anything, the long-eared bat issue. It's just a safety issue that they're going to take care of. And there's plans to remove some of the invasives in the fall on the property, start working on that. They're going to be in the process of putting together a maintenance schedule for the properties, you know, with the highway department, whomever, you know, subcontractor to do maintenance, and then they want to get up, install trail signs following that. The acquisition plan, they're continuing to work on. They have pretty damn near a final draft. There's a community event they wanted to, one of the members wanted to thought it would be good to hold a community event for those people that have contributed their property to CPF, or to open it up to everybody. And that they're tentatively scheduling that for the fall. And then there was a gentleman, Ken Banta. He made an offer to donate a memorial bench in honor of his father, Joe. So there's going to be a further discussion about a place where that could be placed. So that's it. That's all I have.
You know, of course, that in order for the town to accept a gift like a bench, it requires action by the town board to approving it, accepting the gift, a resolution accepting the gift.
There's no emoluments clause with that, Stephen?
No.
Yes, and Meg and I were at the site plan review, and you always hit all the spots, so there's nothing much I can report on that. But I would just wanted to spend a minute, okay, Ken Lewis did a review here on trucks and grants and stuff like that. I guess what I'm looking for, and the reason why I'm a little hesitant, I don't have a feeling, and I don't think anybody here is really in the trucking business or in the vehicle business. I just think when we get into the budget review, I think we can I think we need to take a look in more depth in terms of the years of Ken said that Judy has all this information, so I'm going to revert to taking a look at what she has, okay? But I think that, I think with the budget season, and I am assuming that we're moving forward and is there any timeline with that at this particular time?
We haven't made it up yet, but Shelby and I are going to sit down and.
Okay, I know the accountant or the auditors were here, okay,
The
so,
auditors are here, they're going to be here again this week,
Right.
working on things. Shelby, I think, posted some more things, but we were waiting on some final journal entries, so we need to get that from them as well.
okay. And I just wanted, there are some items like we talked, I think the last session, okay, there were some open items, like we had something with Hilo Shores. You mentioned that you were looking to review with Ken what things we did there and what kind of a plan. I guess that'll come in when we do the budgeting, I'm assuming, how that works? No,
No, that one's outside. Because
Outside.
That one is requiring a legal look at the required road dimensions that are needed and, surfaces and things like that. So that's more of a discussion with Hilo Shores because
they have to bring it up to
speed.
conformity.
At their expense.
Not a problem. And, obviously my favorite subject is the center septics, okay? I know we're still on, Joe will be back in June 3rd, that's where we left off, and
Yes,
then we can continue our discussions of how do we move forward with that. Nothing has changed with that. The board is really in agreement that we're going to move forward with our
He's going to-
IA systems, okay?
Yes.
No, not necessarily that we're gonna move forward to IA systems, but that we're gonna continue to explore all the options.
Yeah, he's going to present to us what the different paths look like.
Right.
For the different, properties and, consolidated, not consolidated, whether, what kinds
Whether
of
we have-
Right,
variances.
what the
Yeah.
possible options.
We're gonna move forward with it while we
Yes.
still have that funding
Yeah,
going.
he comes back part-time next week.
And then the only other thing that I had, it was in my, and maybe I missed this, okay, but when we talked about the West Neck Water District, we had the three, is that straightened out at this particular time? Have we moved forward with those three homes, or those three applicants that were looking to be connected to West Neck Water?
That was put in Joe's hands, and so
Okay.
when he's back next week, we
Okay.
can see where that stands.
Okay.
If he was tasked with following
But we
up on
did-
that.
We did give them permission.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, so, yeah, it's, I think, a Steve, it's a Suffolk County Water Authority, and a Joe get-together issue.
That's all I have.
Okay.
You're good.
Contractor License Review Board is going to meet again tomorrow and review draft legislation, so hopefully that will be coming to us for review in the next couple of weeks. Get that redone. I also, the Conic Community Preservation Fund, Peconic Community Preservation, or Peconic Bay Region Advisory Committee, I think is the right name. There have been an IMA and a proposed retainer agreement this is for the old Fred Thiel board that's now going to be the 11 members. So we have just distributed on Friday was an IMA and a retainer agreement. So all of the supervisors are being asked to take a look at it. Comments made, it'll get reworked. East Hampton or Southampton. One of the, either Southampton or East Hampton is working on it to draft it. So when that's ready, then I will circulate that to all of you as well.
Okay,
So,
great.
but that's progress.
Yeah, it's moving forward.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. And that's all that I had. So I would like a motion to go into executive session to review the employment history of employment and also for some contracts.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.